Welcome to Social Work Updates. In this video, we are going to talk about the components of social work practice. Trained or professional social workers often find it difficult to explain to the public or even to their friends and families what they do and what social work practice is all about. They are often most visible during crises or emergencies and are seen monitoring or giving out material aid. It is therefore not surprising at all that the public image of a social worker is that of a charity worker handing dole out. So, in this video the components of social work practice will be discussed in order to provide a clearer understanding of social work as a profession for which one must possess basic scientific knowledge, appropriate values, and the skills necessary for helping people in distress. To begin with, there are four major components of social work practice: the client, the problem, the agency, and the helping process. Helen Harris Perlman, an American author, refers to these as the 4Ps, meaning the person, the problem, the place, and the process. So let's start discussing what is the client. The client is an individual, man, woman, or child, a family, small group or community who finds himself or is found to need help in some aspects of his economic, social, and emotional living. In a third world country, the major or most serious problems facing the client are the lack of material resources and the inadequacy of social services. These impede or affect his psychosocial functioning, that is, his ability to maintain social relationships, which involve psychological factors such as his own behavior and those around him. The moment the process to help him is set in motion, he becomes a client of the assisting social agency, and specifically, of the individual social worker who has been assigned to help him. The dictionary defines a client as one for non-professional services are rendered or one dependent on the patronage, protection, of another. Therefore, the client is not necessarily subordinate to the worker in their relationship. It is a kind of partnership where one, the client, needs a service and the other, the worker, has the competence and resources to provide it. To meet the need or solve the problem, both worker and client must join hands, the former providing the external resources and the latter the internal resources, that is, his motivations, innate capacities, and acquired abilities. Sometimes, the client is referred to as a case. When this term is used, it refers not only to the person or persons involved, it includes the state of affairs or the situation in which they are the principal characters. Each person is a biopsychosocial being, so is the client. Every person is a living organism, capable of mental processes and acting or reacting in certain ways under specific circumstances and lives, and interacts socially with other persons or groups. Knowing or being aware of the fact that the client is a biopsychosocial being, the worker therefore studies not only the person or client by himself, but the person in his approach is now known as studying the person in situation or the total person in situation. It must be stressed that whatever the client is, child, youth, or adult, his inner self as well his outer environment, his past and present experiences conspire to make him what he is. In the days when social work was just evolving as a profession in the Western countries, it was generally assumed that most clients had impaired psychosocial functioning. These countries were then industrializing, and it seemed unthinkable then that there were still poor people to be found in the land of plenty. This situation, added to the fact that the Americans had adopted the English view that poverty was the fault of the individual, led them to the conclusion that poverty was the result of the individual's own moral failure to take care of himself. Hence the emerging focus of social work was to enhance the person's impaired social functioning based on the assumption that dysfunctioning was his fault. he lacked the moral fiber to improve himself and his situation in life. However, this basic assumption was later modified when pioneer social workers themselves undertook researches which proved this assumption incorrect. The environment or the economic and social structures prevailing in the country may contain the factors that create the problems for individuals, leading them to dysfunctioning. These may be due to lack of material resources, of job or livelihood opportunities, or the inaccessibility to the individual of services essential to improving his situation in life. This is characteristic of the third world countries like the Philippines. And so the overall purpose of social work is now stated as to enhance the person's psychosocial functioning, be this impaired, endangered, or in need of improvement. In our country, majority of the social welfare clients belong to the urban or semi-urban poor. Any signs of dysfunctioning is often due to the economic and social environment and the lack of inadequacy of resources. In a sense, their failure to cope with their problems is partly due to stunted growth and development as persons physically, economically, socially, intellectually, and even spiritually, because they were deprived of the resources they needed, as these were either unavailable or inaccessible. Their need therefore is to have more in order to be more. Social work in the Philippines therefore addresses not only to the restoration of impaired psychosocial functioning, but much more to the prevention of dysfunctioning, and to the development of the person's inner resources so that he can live more decently as a human being should. An emerging term frequently used nowadays is client system. It refers to all entities, person, family, group, organization, or community that receive or command the attention of the social worker. It includes or covers such terms as client target population, change target, and the like. System implies that the entities are acting like units of one collective entity and are interacting in an interrelated and interdependent manner with each other. The bulk of social work clients are the poor, the destitute, homeless, disabled or handicapped of many third world cities, orphaned, neglected, abused and abandoned children, or disadvantaged women who have been deserted by their husbands and left without any means of support. Many social workers deal with out-of-school youth, with beggars and vagrants apprehended by the police, and with young offenders placed under their supervision by the courts. The Philippines is often struck by natural disasters as it is situated in the so-called typhoon belt, hence relief operations by the government's irregular occurrence. In the last 2 or 3 decades, armed conflicts here and abroad have left in their wake many people who became physically disabled, mentally disoriented, or emotionally traumatized, resulting in the impairment of their coping mechanisms. Their number has swelled social work's target population. And for the next components of social work practice, stay tuned on the next video. And that's it, thanks for watching. For more social work updates, please watch and like the video, hit the bell and subscribe to my YouTube channel.